this episode, if it comes out, will be while Noah is playing.
Yeah, so right now, hypothetically,
yes,
Noah
is listening before he goes into his next match.
That's what my hope is.
Okay.
I hope he doesn't show up to his next match. He's like, they dropped an episode?
Well, here's the thing. If you remember, when we were at Gen Con, I dropped out of my Digimon tournament match while I was up 3-0 at a national level event, and I said, I'm going to drop out because the Pocket Paragons World Finals are about to happen, and I had to go compete, and I had already built my deck, and I was facing against a guy. I think I might have told this on the pod, is the only issue. But
say it again.
Okay. I was facing against a guy.
Story, so I don't think it was all.
Okay. I was facing against a guy, and I was like, I'm up 3-0. And he had been telling me the whole match how, like, the last tournament he had been really excited about, and he wanted to do well in this one, but I was like, sorry, I'm a better player. So I beat him. I beat his ass. And then I was like, I said out loud, I'm thinking of dropping. And I said to him, I was like, I'm not sure yet, but if I'm going to drop, I'll give you the win. Because I want to, like, help you. Because he was 2-0, and then that was going to be his first loss. I was like, whatever, I'll just fucking help the guy. And then he's like, well, now I feel awkward. Because I was being a nice guy. I was doing the right thing. But I was thinking, we can't say this.
Oh, God.
Are we recording?
Yeah, we're recording.
Anyways, so I was being a nice guy.
You just canceled the podcast.
I was being a nice guy. But then he's like, well, I feel awkward now because I don't know whether my life is in your hands. So he said, what can I give you to make you bail out of this tournament? And I said, well, I was going to do it anyways. And he's like, yeah, but like, if you're on the fence, let me give you something so that way you feel better about leaving the tournament right now. I said, okay, open up your binder.
The Potionomics coming in.
And so he cracks open his binder, and I'm looking through it. I was like, what purple alt arts do you have? And he's going through them, and he gets to a page eventually, and I'm like, you know what? Is there anything from your participation today that you don't want? Because I'll just take participation, I'll give it to like a friend back home. I'll do that. That's like, because I know you have it, because you just got it today. And so he starts to take out a participation card, and he goes, can I keep the Vmon? Because I really like it.
God.
And I went,
you're extorting it.
And so he said,
no, give me.
And I was like,
do you
am I going to leave this tournament? I don't know. And so I said, at that moment, I was like, it clicked. I was like, I'm extorting this guy. So I said, keep your cards. I'm going to leave. We're going to play Pocket Paragon. I said, what's the cheapest purple altar you have? And I said, I have an Altart Chaos Gallimon. Valued at like 50 cents. I was like, give me that one, and we'll just call it Even Steven. And I left. But I've just realized that there's so many bad Digimon players. That there's an untapped market of selling my spot after beating their ass that I could just, in one day, if the world economy crashes, I know that I could just go back and just feed on bad players.
If it wasn't for Pocket Paragons, you wouldn't be able to do that, though.
And what made me so upset is, of the three of us, I was the only one who did not win a Pocket Paragons World Finals.
That was a sick tournament. Like,
it was a great tournament.
Okay, in context, World Finals was like, this is the first time they were running a competition for the game, and I think there was 8 players?
12.
12. There was 12 players.
It's not small.
It wasn't bad. Yeah, there was a couple people that were pretty invested. And Noah took it. Noah won.
No, Noah took the singles event, and then you took the team event. No, so you came second in the team. I came second in the team event.
Yeah.
But like with
I came second in both.
Like with all of Jeremiah's victories at tournaments,
they come with an asterisk.
The guy who came second decided to throw the final match because he said, I don't need the prizing, and he gave it to Jeremiah. Just like how Jeremiah got his Nats invite in the first place.
Yeah. So it was in the singles match. You remember that was I'm bobbing and weaving when I was playing.
I remember
when I was playing Mata versus Jael.
Yeah.
And that one I came second. And then in the event the next day, it was Noah and I in the final match, and then Noah took it.
Noah has a good sense of like, this game system is simple. I just need to like go for the direct win con. Like, don't go for all these complicated mechanics. He very much has a good mindset of like, what is my goal to winning? And in Pocket Paragons, the goal to winning is deal enough damage. And it's like, which of these characters is going to just deal enough damage efficiently that I don't need to like interact with all these additional mechanics.
We thought it was Saris. The answer
Is
is
Obninsk.
well, yeah, he's pretty broken.
Yeah.
What about Rios?
Rios is also very good, yeah. But we won't get into the Pocket Paragon meta, but I was going to say, because Noah is now, currently, as this is dropping, at Nationals.
He's the Pocket Paragon's world
The Pocket Paragon's world champion is now...
You don't want to date this podcast. Noah actually won Nationals.
So he's out there competing. So I let's not bury the lead on this one. This is the Errata Sonata podcast, and I'm Ian.
I'm Jeremiah.
I'm Julian. Again.
Julian again. A triple threat guest.
Can you really call him a guest at this point?
Well, I'm not giving him any of our ad revenue.
We get ad revenue? Wait.
Pocket Paragons better give us some ad revenue for how much we talked about them.
Brian McKay, we're coming in. No, but realistically, me and Julian know each other first and foremost for a lot of things, but we interacted the most at McMaster through Smash events, hosting tournaments, and competing in tournaments. Mm-hmm. And then me and Jeremiah know each other primarily through competing in Digimon events.
Right.
And so I know both of you guys in a competitive context. We've all played different games to a different level of competitiveness. And then now one of our homegrown Noah is out there trying it on the big stage.
He's easily the most competitive of us, though, because
within Digimon.
For context, I mean, Noah just plays. I mean, everyone knows this at this point, but Noah just plays every single tournament that's available for Digimon, like offline, on. Well, not offline.
That man is willing to play the odds. Yeah.
Right. He. The truth is, I'm sure that if more events were located near us, he'd drive an hour to go play Digimon for like a nationals. Like,
yeah.
No questions. Maybe not like even in nationals, like in regionals, he'd probably drive an hour to go play.
Yeah, I think he's dedicated to the idea of competing, and I mean, even though I've said on this podcast, like I can only think of card games as being so competitive. I think if you are going to treat it as a competitive experience, it is fundamentally a matter of roll the dice again. Like go to
poker.
another.
You play poker professionally. It's about playing as many hands as you can.
Yes, and then eventually, like you are going to find those winning hands.
Right.
Yeah. I definitely think that it's a numbers game. I think that it becomes a bit more finicky when we say there's a few players that are consistently topping, and we go, well, what's going on here? I'm not like implying anything nefarious, but I'm just saying that like there is probably a missing secret sauce that enables some players to like reach a higher level of competence and results.
It's Kiki's mat setup.
What does Kiki do other mat?
Oh man, have you not seen? Okay, so
Kiki's the player who's local, a Mississauga player.
Yeah, and he's like he tops a lot of regional events, mostly playing Ulforce, which is like not a bad deck, but it's not like typically revered as like a particularly competitive deck. And his playmat, the way he sets up his playmat, it's unheard of. Like I can't even explain it. You can't tell what the fuck the zones are on his field except for
he just like puts it like
his
wherever.
shit is like everywhere. Yeah, and you're like. We were joking before about how Kiki's mat setup is like confusing his opponents to the point like they're making misplays because they're like, what the fuck is on his board again?
You know, we've referenced an idea many times on the podcast. Noah's going to be angry that we're going to mention it and finally talk about it with him not here. But there's an issue, Julian, that you might not be aware of, which we will refer to as side stacking. Which is something, which is one of the most controversial things that Digimon YouTubers love to do. Which is when so Digimon cards, at the bottom of each card, the inheritable is written. Right. So you know what goes onto the next card. You put it on top of it.
I already know
instead of putting the card on top of each other, shifted slightly upwards, they put it horizontally or vertically in line with it, but horizontally askew. Right. So they stack the cards sideways.
So you can't read
any of the inheritable.
You read half of the text.
You can read half of the text of each card.
And then when they swing, you kind of...
They tap the whole thing.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
They tap the whole thing?
They grab all cards, they could have all of them.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
It's awful. And I don't know why they do it, but there's a bunch of YouTubers. I think... So my theory initially was like, they might have more horizontal real estate because of monitors. They're all mats and monitors. And like the video footage might be like discouraging them from going across the edges of the mat. Right. It's unwatchable footage.
And you know what it is? It actually reminds me. So we know someone, you and I, Ian, someone of similar stature to you, I'll say, from McMaster, who plays Magic, and they put their lands at
In
the
front?
top
Oh my God.
of the map.
I love that
Which
shit.
I think it's
That's
illegal
so
now.
funny.
It is illegal
It is.
because there was a tournament, a high level player that
Right.
used to do that,
Competitive.
and then they flipped. They not only played their cards at the top, they also flipped them the opposite direction,
Yes.
so their opponent could see their card. They're like, I got sick of turning my cards so my opponent could see them, so I just put it so my opponent could see them before I
Yes.
could see them.
Yes.
I put them upside down.
Yeah, I put every card upside
That's
down.
what I talked about.
I know you talked about
My
it.
land's upside down.
What do you think about that for Digimon? Do you think?
I think it's a war crime. I think
Right. So do you think there should actually
when
be a
you
ban
digivolve?
on how to digivolve sideways?
I don't know whether there is or not, but intentionally blocking text that is intended to be visible, it should not be allowed.
They design the cards, and honestly, they like sell you the game with that set. Like every
It's in the song.
It's in the song.
It
It's
is
in the
the
promotional video.
Digimon rule song.
It says stack them up, and they show them stacking them with the inheritable showing. What the? What are you missing? They tell you how to do it. What the fuck?
So anyway, side stacking is the most what I would describe as non-competitive habit.
Pile shuffling.
Well, fuck me. We don't have time.
You're not doing the stair method on your security. What's is the ladder-
Oh yeah,
what is
yeah.
the ladder?
So I you know how I put each of my
Yeah, I got into the
security
habit of doing
my
that
security cards like at a 45-degree angle from each other.
Yeah.
Not that sharp, but probably like an
enough
80
to see the corner.
enough to see each corner.
now. So you can visibly count.
Yeah, so that way your
opponent.
opponents can count. Because yeah, when you just put them all in line and they're like dark sleeves, it's just like I have no idea how many cards are
The
there.
only exception is if someone has like a bordered art sleeve, in which case you can count because like you're literally going to see the border.
Yeah.
But when you have just a monocolor sleeve, it's like grow up, man.
I think it's the main thing is that we want the rules of a game to encourage easy readability of mechanics on field. So
Yeah.
like, how many security you have, it should be something that I don't have to think twice about. I should immediately know it. There was an era where we were putting dice on top of our security to be like, oh, like you put a D6 on top of your security. The issue is security then was getting up to like 10 security for security control.
bro. Get over yourself. Come on, man.
But most people don't buy countdown dice because the countdown dice are less good for rolling for competitive gaming. So like,
Go to a draft event. What the? Come on, man.
Okay, all right.
No, I'm not. I'm taking the handcuffs off. I'm not putting up with this shit anymore. Grow the fuck up. Get a count. Get a spin down.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyways.
Anyways, anime figure.
Anyways, so I've been collecting anime figures for a while.
No, I wanted to talk about how like it's funny because we make this big issue about I can't believe people are just putting their cards wherever the fuck they want, and that's and it's confusing people. Yu-Gi-Oh used to be
Yu-Gi-Oh.
all over the fucking place, and
Now
that was
to make the playmats that have the zones.
yes, they specifically have zones from the ground up in the
Yes.
game, and no Yu-Gi-Oh player in the world before the Link era. So I want to say that's like 2016. Before 2016, no Yu-Gi-Oh player in the fucking world was conforming to those zones. They would be like, my deck is over here. I'm going to turn it to the side. My graveyard's going to be like down by my chest, turned sideways so I have easy access to it.
Yeah.
I'm going to fucking play. And all that they would do is put monsters on the top and spells in the bottom.
Right.
And traps.
Yeah.
Nobody plays those. And then so that was like, but then they started introducing link arrows, which was like pointing to specific points of the playmat.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, zones matter now.
Mhm.
Then they've literally created a thing called a field center for players, a field center card to be like, this is the middle of the playmat.
You have to buy the Yu-Gi-Oh compass.
It's literally to the point for like players that like, oh, I just want to play with my custom playmat with anime titties on it.
Who doesn't?
They're Vanguard players.
Exactly.
That's the Vanguard fronts.
And they're like, okay, so I'm gonna put my field center in the middle, so you know that like her left nipple is like where this is my third.
That's my
monster
fucking
zone.
reticle
Yeah.
trained on it. Like,
And her ass is also in the shot somehow.
of course, every shot needs to have full ass and full tits to crack that spine.
What was the game called?
I don't want to call it out. I don't want to give a shout out to this fucking shitty Chinese gacha
It's
game.
awful. Yeah, so I just think it's hilarious that Yu-Gi-Oh literally had to go out of its way to be like, you fuckers, just just pay attention to where your cards are.
Yeah.
We're gonna print it into the game, but you need to do us a favor and use these goddamn
So
field centers.
do you want games to have like more clearly defined zones so that way like there is no ambiguity?
I'm fine with zones. Like, I like them. I mean, I can understand why people wouldn't like specific zones for things, but in terms of
Because I play with my security and my deck swap.
yeah, it's just for ease of access.
Yeah, it's very easy of access
If you're
for
a
me.
left-hand drawer,
But it's
or a
very-
right-hand drawer.
it's very
Except for me,
obvious.
I am a right-hand drawer,
But
but
it's on
I
your
just
left side.
yeah because my arms are so long, I find that like it's easier to like have a bit more distance between me and the deck when I draw my cards. Whereas if I keep it close, like I feel like I'm T-Rexing and I'm like elbowing the back of the chair.
Yeah.
So I just found it easier to just put it on my left side.
But that's pretty clearly identified of like, oh, your deck is your security stack? How the fuck do you have 50 cards in your security? Like, you know what I mean? I'm not thinking about that.
No.
I think the other thing is I like graveyards to not be obscured by the deck. For people who have their deck closest to their opponent and then their graveyard like basically closer to the player, a lot of the times the graveyard is obscured. So I don't know like if your graveyard is big.
Well, that is where I put my graveyard. I'll be honest, but I just
disliked it.
I get that. That's fair. But anyways, Noah has no recourse because these are the rules that he is sitting under. Those decks and those graveyards and the breeding zone are going exactly where they're going.
Yeah. I also I respect people that do have playmats with zones on them. However, you guys make fun of me.
I hate
this.
them.
I put my eggs, my what's it called?
Breeding
zone. Yeah. I turn that to the left and I just flip like that. I do.
It doesn't really matter. It's not.
I rotate it and I just want to like, I don't know why I do it, but it's just for ease of like flipping.
Sorry,
I don't understand that at all. Sorry. So
he turns so he wants to draw from a sideways deck and then put it vertical. So he wants to do this motion.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right. And so that is, I don't know. And then
I again, as somebody who plays with their deck and their security swap, I think that like having those minor customizations is fine, but there is like a hope and an expectation that like a reasonable opponent will be like, yeah, this is not complicated. I can figure it out.
No, but
what I always say to people is like, my field is a mirror of your field. So if you can figure out your field, my field makes sense.
Do you think that in tournament they should have like
standardized?
Do you think they should have like a playmat for you to use that clearly identifies, you know, what zones are where?
Personally, no. I think it is. I'm not a big guy. Like, I like the idea of card games being viewed and having an audience, but at the same time, I don't think that the rules of the tournament should be structured around viewership. I think the rules of the tournament should be structured around the players, and I don't think it's harming one player, but it is benefiting one player to have that ease of flexibility in terms of layout. So, as a whole, I'm an advocate for it. There was a conversation that happened recently online because Yu-Gi-Oh! Has essentially anti-rule sharking rules built in, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
So, like with Magic, if my opponent, like there's a lot of examples in Magic of somebody saying the wrong thing and essentially going to the wrong phase of the game state or missing a trigger that was mandatory but would have benefited them, and or like saying the wrong word, like with Pithing Needle, and then targeting the wrong card in their opponent's deck. Yu-Gi-Oh! has from the outset said, what is the intention of your opponent? That's what we're going to sort of side with on all
So if they misspeak,
features.
it doesn't matter.
If they misspeak, it really doesn't matter.
So if I say the name of a creature in Magic who has two variants, but
we both understand it. Like, it was from the very beginning. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has said like we are focusing on intention rather than technical wording. And I think that like that's kind of the mindset that I approach card games. Like I really am trying to play within the spirit of the game, and that means allowing concessions for people who want to play harmlessly differently from one another.
Giving someone a win for the cheap cost of 50 cents.
Yeah, exactly.
But going great.
If anything, he should be thanking me. I give him a discount. But yeah, what the main meat and potatoes of what I wanted to get into today is because like our boy, our champion, our true champion, Steven, is a famous side stacker in the Digimon community.
Got him.
But Noah is currently prepping for his tournament, or is at his tournament, depending on what time of day this gets posted.
Right.
So, I mean, I want to get into pre-tournament rituals, really, first and foremost.
Right.
Pre-tournament rituals and tournament prep, and just how we're feeling about going into competitions, because I want to get our boy in the mindset, in the grind set. I said if we've got one listener and it's Noah, I want him to win this tournament.
Do you remember when we went to Indiana and we all placed top 32 at that event.
Yeah.
And that was on 3 hours of sleep, no food throughout the day.
That was a very bad tournament.
Except for like cereal bars, and then like we literally checked into our Airbnb at like 3 a.m.
Yes.
I think we had eggs. Did we eat eggs?
Yeah,
that day?
because you made awful eggs.
Yeah.
And then Noah made good eggs.
That's because I'm vegan. Cut that.
There's one mention of Jeremiah being vegan.
So, that was terrible tournament prep, but we all placed pretty well.
Yeah, I mean,
it was just funny.
I think I've done a lot of competition in my life, so like I'm used to going into tournaments in like a certain level of burnout, and like card games, you can mess up a lot in card games. I mean, that's why rule sharking exists. But at the same time, if I compare that to like an experience like Smash or a fighting game, if I'm tired going into a fighting game, it's fucking over.
Yeah.
There's no hope. If you're telling me like my reaction speed is going to be like 20 frames delayed, I'm not playing the game.
Right.
Whereas if I have 20 frame delay reaction speed, I mean that's a Greymon player.
You're gonna win my timeout.
Well, I think that's fair because like Digimon's more of a thinking man's game, you know.
A real thinker.
Requires a little bit more intelligence up here, if you want to say.
I'm not sure if I agree with that.
No, I'm joking. I just think that like you can take your time and think things out, and that's going to benefit you more than it is like being reactive or like you're. Think about sports competition. Like I'm thinking about getting into competitive weightlifting. Like that requires you to be well trained, but on top of that, your muscles need to be like well recovered. You need to be well rested cognitively. You need to be eating very well. Like all of those play into how you do in a competition.
Yeah, there's physical factors that like you need to manage.
But like that day that we played Digimon, like we were underslept.
So yeah, mental fatigue.
Did not do any preparation basically.
Yeah.
We ate like crap. We barely ate anything.
Yeah.
And it was, we were like, probably very not cognitive.
And then I got angry. I don't know if you remember my last match of the.
Why did you get
I got very angry because I think I mentioned again everything we say. Our lives are not interesting enough, so we mentioned the same thing on the podcast a couple times. But I got my opponent intentionally stalled in the final, in the overtime 5 minutes of the match because he was up 1-0 against me. And I was like, if he passes turn, I will take the game.
Right.
So he took 5 minutes of just like moving his cards around and thinking about it. Right. And 2 minutes into that, I said, Judge, can you come over here? And the judge came over and then didn't extend the time. So they came over and they talked to us about the issue. But then them talking to us about the issue wasted more time. And I was like, just tell him to pass the turn so I can like win the game.
What's the turn timer?
If both of us have had 2 turns, that ends it. Or if we hit 5 minutes, it's also over.
After the timing of a match.
After the regular time.
But if my question is, in one single turn, when can you call a clock?
So there isn't a judge.
Yikes.
No, so I talked about this. I actually made a big stink about this in the Discord afterwards, the Hamilton Discord. Because I was really angry. I was like, why, if we're going to have this system, do we not have like, you're a minute 15 in, it's over. Yeah. Like a minute 15, each turn, done. Unfortunately, we don't have anything to sort of enforce that. We just say 5 minutes or 2 turns each. And if they just decide to sit on their hands on the first of the turns, then you just...
That's so gross.
Yeah.
That's really, really bad.
Yeah, I was
because it's really easy to exploit something like that. And
well, I think that Digimon, like, unfortunately, it has rules built around the idea of what I'm saying, which is, fair play, good intention of you and your opponent. But then it doesn't have protections against intentional rule sharking, time stalling. Like,
we need chess timers.
Yeah,
we kind of might. We don't want to implement it because it's like in the matches it doesn't matter for. It's only a nuisance. Mm-hmm. But in the matches it does matter for. It would be very helpful to have chess timers.
It makes you a better player, so it's not exactly a nuisance.
Gives you awareness. Sure. I mean, Julian, I love you. We play like hour and a half games.
Yeah. Because I'm also still learning the game and I'm playing a slow deck.
Dude, you just watched the rules song. What more do you need to learn?
I do think a lot. I'm when I play control decks.
Digimon's a thinking man's game.
Digimon's a thinking man's game.
I'm a roper. Jeremiah will know that phrase. I'm a roper.
Nice. Dude, I respect that.
I don't know what that is.
There's a rope in Hearthstone.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Of the time.
Yeah.
When it starts burning down, I'm a roper.
I respect
when I'm playing control decks.
Yeah.
I'm a roper.
I was roping a lot too, man. Like that's c'est la vie, man.
Yeah.
So I mean, step one of our Noah strategy guide: watch out for timer scam.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. You're going to a big event. You can't trust these fuckers.
Watch out for bricking really hard with no mulligan. Luckily, that doesn't.
Yeah,
have to happen.
I am really glad that we have. For a long time, Digimon didn't have a mulligan.
No mulligan.
We still don't have
in competitive.
in competitive.
Yeah.
For a very very long
Yeah.
time.
Wow.
And I know it's very bad, but we also we tested sideboards and then we took them out, which is also very
so
disappointing.
cringe, dude.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
awful.
yeah.
we might get it back. I mean, the reality is that Bandai has made generally only positive direction changes to the core rules of the game since launch.
Yeah.
So we could keep going in the upward direction. We could add sideboards. But yeah, Bandai's still not perfect with all of the decision making they have.
No, and something that I kind of associate with all these bigger tournaments is like the cost to be playing. So like
Fucking $45
You know what I mean?
entry for like a
just
regional,
to play, and you could just
and no prizing, by the way.
Exactly, you can just get like shit on and then not get anything for it. You spend $45 for the opportunity to show up.
Yeah.
When I was playing Vanguard, the thing that I really liked is that all the tournaments were free to enter. So that's the
They
way
were paying you to enter the tournament. The game was dying.
God,
so
they
quickly.
fucking had to.
Well, and so I was like, you know, as someone who I was a little bit more in my shell when I was in high school.
He's kind of quirky. He's kind of different.
Kind of different. I was a different guy at the time, and it's just like, you know, it took confidence to like go to the store and start playing in locals, and then when I heard how accessible going to regionals were, a bunch of the guys from locals going to regionals, I was like, yeah, if it's free, I'll show up. You know, and I started going to events, and then I mean, I got my shit wrecked, but like, I still had a good time, and I feel like I got better as a player, and as better as you can get in something that's basically completely random. But it's a good thing for like you to, you know, kind of get into the competitiveness without feeling like you lost a lot to get to where you are.
Well, you
right?
talked about how much you enjoyed going to that Bakugan tournament, and like
Yeah.
how that like was an emblematic and you know really formative memory for you.
Yeah.
So I think that like yeah, tournaments are kind of core to every card game experience. Like if you're gonna have a game, you need to have a place to play the game.
Yeah.
Although sometimes I don't think treating it as a super competitive experience is always the best way of going about it. Like I respect Noah going to nationals, but we look at a lot of nationals metas and they often pare the game down into like 3 or 4 decks and like, you know, really codified matchups, codified deck lists, and it's really just, you know, rolling the dice as to which individual pilot of which individual deck is going to actually come out on top.
I do think this time around the format is going to be, people are speculating that Anubismon is going to be like the best deck. Right?
It's a powerful deck.
It's really good, but I don't think the format's so solved, and then it's like you have like one boogeyman and the rest of the decks are almost irrelevant. I think it's a pretty fair game for almost anything to like compete in this nationals that's coming up, and you know, I think it'll be interesting to see kind of where it goes, because like you've said before, all of the past nationals have had pretty skewed results towards like a couple decks, and with the way the game is right now, there's a lot of decks that can compete.
Yeah, I think that we've gone, again, we talked about it before, but since BT12, we've gone in a really healthy meta direction. And it's thankfully still going up. I'm hoping that Nationals kind of reflects that a little bit on its actual outcome. I mean, it doesn't matter if we spoil Noah's deck list right now. Noah is going in with Anubis. Did you edit? Noah is actually playing Mirage Gaugamon for Nationals. So he is.
Oh,
like,
he is. He's not going with blue.
How could you? He's in his second round right now. And now his third round opponent's going to know every single
Probably
card.
Lister is his opponent.
Piece of shit. You piece of shit. Also, kind of real quick. Open deck lists are a neat idea.
What the fuck is wrong with you? We got an episode topic and you just dropped the most wild shit I've ever heard in my goddamn life.
I didn't say it was good or bad. I just said it's an interesting concept.
No, because the thing is, games have done it. We know it's a bad fucking concept. Why the fuck in a card game that is predicated on the idea of building a deck and having hidden information in your deck would I say, you know what? Throw that shit out. Why doesn't my opponent know? When I played 2 Hellscates, it's over. They know that there's not a third one in the deck.
I'm going to
list.
assume what you're playing based on a net deck anyways. So you may as well just tell me.
I can't believe, Jeremiah, that on your this fucking public posting that you would utter such a garbage opinion.
I just think it's interesting.
I just think it's neat.
You're
fucking die on that hill.
Decks, and you trade decks with your opponent. That's a neat idea.
I just think about
you know what? If rock paper scissors determined the winner of the match, that's a neat idea.
It's just interesting to think
It's
about.
kind of quirky.
I'm saying that, like, look at stuff like Exceed or Legends of Runeterra or Hearthstone, like, in their competitive environments, like, you have access to know everything your opponent can do with the stuff that's in the pile.
But in a game where deck building exists, I think deck building is predicated on hidden information.
Hearthstone also is usually the format is you have to go in with multiple decks.
Yeah.
And so the deck lists are public because you go in for
You're
like
counterpicking.
it's a best of 3 and you each have 3 decks and you actually get to ban usually one of your opponent's decks.
That's more or less what I was talking about. Okay. I just said, like,
Do you think the drafting element?
I think that is generally cool. Of like, I think I'm good at pilot. It's like, I want to pilot this. I know that they're good at that. I'm going to take that out of
their pool of playable decks.
Yeah, I'm going to take it out of what they can play, and then I'm going to go in and hedge my bet with, like, this deck. And if they ban it, then I have to swap to another one. But it's like, you know.
Yeah,
I think it becomes an interesting level of strategy before the game even starts.
Sure, I can get behind that. I guess it just, to me, it always comes down to, like, it reduces interesting deck building decisions. Mm-hmm. And part of my want to go towards sideboarding is to increase the complexity of deck building decisions. And to me, that's going just in the opposite direction of the game I want to play and I want the game to be.
Well, I can agree. And I mean, you've seen me make, like, meta calls with my deck list because like, I'm expecting to see something and it's like, I'm going to add this in case.
Remember, there was an era where this guy was unique and special for being like, I love Rise Greymon. People will never see us Rise Greymon coming. And then Shine Greymon as a deck came out and...
Listen, yellow hybrids, we got stripped of everything we've ever had, which is Jet Sylphie, and had to find something to pick up the pieces. And listen... Yeah. Rise Greymon was there when no one else was.
So when I look back in the footsteps and there was only one Digimon card in the ground, it was Rise Greymon. And then right next to him, Rise Greymon.
It was
X.
Rise X. And you know what I liked? No, hold on. I'm going off on this for a second.
Going off topic, tangent on or off topic.
Because Rise Greymon, I really liked. Rise Greymon X, I liked because I treated him as another boss monster of my deck. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go Rise Greymon, play a Tamer, into Rise Greymon X, play a Tamer, delete your thing, and swing in for a big number. Rather than being like, so I felt okay going down on Megas, because then I wasn't as concerned about going straight up to my 6. I was just fine with sticking at Rise Greymon and getting value through my Tamers that I've been playing throughout the game.
Yeah.
And that was in a format with Death X being, like, run in every single deck. Like, literally, it was when BT9 happened. So I really enjoyed that playstyle. It was like a different take on yellow hybrids to the point of like, oh, I want to be getting these passive effects off as often as possible and playing a bunch of Tamers. And Rise Greymon X was there to be an ultimate that you were okay going into, but ideally you would place it on top of your other ultimate to get kind of the best effects out of it. And then you were okay with just staying there.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah. Rise Greymon X.
Pretty neat.
He's a real one. I like him.
I think there's, going back to it, with the open versus shut deck list, I think there's also a question of when you go to an actual tournament and you have closed deck list, there's a whole another meta of like, okay, I know this person is my next opponent. If you know that person, you might know what they're playing.
Yeah.
And you might switch some of those cards in your deck. You don't have to divulge what's in your deck. It's a lot harder to police those kind of decisions, right? If you're playing at top level, you almost always will know other national level players.
Sure, but I mean, most game systems don't allow for entering the game one with a modified deck list. Usually, most game systems require you to have a main deck, which is static, and then they have a sideboard, which you can go into on game 2 and 3.
I'm just saying that's like...
You're saying at the risk of cheaters.
I'm saying it's cheating.
Yeah, no, I there is definitely that. And that comes up, unfortunately, probably more commonly than we realize, because cheating that doesn't get caught is just the game. It's just like, there's nothing to identify it. Step two of our Noah guide. We watch out for timer scammers. Now we can watch out for cheaters. If these guys know your deck list, I saw an Anubis Mon in his deck. Do you think there's a Mervamon in there?
Should we dox his entire deck list right now?
We talked about it. It's fine. I was actually going to say, I'm not even sure if Nats is going on. It might be over by the time this gets posted.
Right.
But I hope that his final deck list includes a Spadamon, because we talked about it. Because Mervamon can play a Spadamon out because at the Crossheart Digimon, and on play de-Digivolve your opponent, and then Anubismon goes delete a level 5 or lower. So you can de-Digivolve their level 6 and then pop it. Yeah. Which I really hope that spicy tech finds its way into the deck list.
Well, if he has an open deck list, people will be looking for it.
People will be on the lookout.
They'll be like, what's this Spadamon doing here? And you're like, it's all over for you.
It's thematic.
You're done right now.
So that's probably my favorite moment in cards, is when I just go, you didn't think I had this in my deck, and I reveal it, and they go, oh my god, I can't believe what's about to happen to me, or what's happening right now. And I'm like, that feels great. When I'm playing a deck that, like, you don't expect to be playing a Lucemon Chaos Mode, the moment that card hits my trash, my opponent goes, I'm scared. Because now I'm aware that card, he has something in his deck that will cheat that card onto the field.
Right. That's some people's least favorite part about cards.
Why?
Well, I think it's a bigger conversation about RNG and just like random factors coming into a game is when somebody deviates from the path of what's expected. Some people, I'm not saying who, maybe someone in this room might have this opinion, we don't know.
Okay.
They just think it's cheap. They think that you're winning based off of
knowledge checks or
just a knowledge check, basically, where it's like you didn't expect this card that's not very good on paper, but it won because it's off meta or whatever.
It's a counter pick choice. It's finicky. I think that if you're playing, against one person and you're counterpicking against them, that's no good.
Right.
But if you're making a meta call, if you're saying like, here's this off meta deck that I think will work really well against the tier 0 deck in the meta, but loses to a bunch of tier 1 decks, I think that is a fine call to make. I think that you are that's one of the most impactful decisions you can make as a card game player, is to make a meta call as to what deck you're playing and then what individual cards in that deck you're going to swap out to deal with certain matchups.
I also think, that comes down to just having a good understanding of like what a format presents to you. Because if you're expecting a certain deck to do really well and you're like, okay, I'm going to lab it out and play, it's like the deck that I'm picking to this event loses really hard to this other deck, right? And then it's like, okay, I'm going to lab out the other deck to have a good understanding of how that plays. So this way I know my worst matchup. And then you have to consider, okay, I know that this deck, like how it beats my ass. How do I beat it? And how does it stop me from how does it have an out to what I'm doing?
Exactly. You need to have that back and forth, even if the discussion is just with yourself, about how your deck is going to overcome obstacles that other decks are going to present to it.
And just having a catalog of what could they possibly be playing to hose my game plan.
Yeah.
Right? And the more you understand a format, and I think the more limited the card pool is, it's really easy to understand.
Yeah.
But with something like Modern or even Legacy, it's kind of almost impossible.
Yeah.
Because there's shit that can come out of nowhere.
Noah mentioned that he had this feeling every time he built a deck, which is, how does it deal with security control? And I think that mentality is kind of really how you have to think about the game. It's when you build a deck, you don't just say, here's my deck in a vacuum. You say, how does it deal with security control? How does it deal with Shine Gray? How does it deal with the top X decks of the meta?
I mean, you could even break it down into how does my deck deal with control, aggro, combo, mid-range, etc.
Yeah, I don't want to sit in the ivory tower, because I've done both. Both sides. I've net decked and just played whatever it was and not really cared about the meta. And then I've gone even down to player versus player meta. I know the friend who I got into Commander with, we used to play 1v1 Commander, and so our decks were hyper tuned to counter each other specifically. This one deck that we played. And then we would bring those decks to the LGS, and they'd be like, why the fuck do you have a Shock in your Niv Mizzet deck? And I was like, oh, because it kills Kalia. And they're like, okay. It was the person I play against plays Kalia, right?
Yeah.
And so it'd be really meta 1v1 decisions. And I think a lot of it comes down to, for me personally, ladder versus in-person tournament. And I think there's two very different mindsets of competitiveness.
Okay.
Where a lot of people who play on ladder think in the way of I'm just going to play generally what's good.
Yeah.
And I think tournament meta is very much like, I think this is going to be high
Yeah,
presence.
like these are the 3 decks I'm worried about, so
Yes.
I'm going to build around that.
Yes.
And I mean, that mostly comes from like a digital versus like paper kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because there's no, I mean, ladder is like going to locals, but even still, you can expect like what is in a locals meta, right? Like you see the guy who shows up every week playing like blue white control, and you're like, okay, I know that there's probably going to be a blue white matchup, so I'll have to like think about.
Well, I can say what it comes down to. At a larger tournament, like, Nats, what Noah's at right now,
Yeah.
the assumption is that everybody in attendance, their goal is to come first.
Yeah.
And if their goal is to come first, they should not play a rogue deck that beats one tier 1 deck
Mhm.
in the meta and loses to everything else.
Right.
So that's where I guess like people can feel cheese, where they're like, this deck is bad, but I happened to face it in round 1, so I lost. Or I faced it in round 3, but like it ran up against the same matchup 3 times in a row.
Mhm.
Fucking love rogue decks.
I also like
I love
rogue
seeing them
decks.
do well. It's great.
I like the idea of rogue decks, but I can see how that can be a frustrating experience. But it's not, because like the decks you go into ladder with, you might just say it will win against 60% of the decks in that exist,
Mhm.
even if from a given national level tournament, it would win against 10% of those decks, because the 60% of possible decks that exist does not represent the representation at a national level
Yeah.
event.
Do you guys think ladder is a viable way to judge competitiveness
No.
in general?
No.
In any game?
I don't.
I mean, in terms of digital CC or TCGs, like I've never really noticed anything that like I'm like, oh, this ladder experience, that means I'm really good. It's like just kind of like getting the reps in. Feels like
Yeah, you're getting practice against a wide range of matchups and experiences within fighting games and card games. Like, again, we also have that experience where like population of players that play a certain character might not represent population of players that play a certain character at a top level. Like, play rate per character varies at different levels of skill and different environments in which you're playing.
there's also like some people that when they make it to the top ranks of stuff, they just start fucking around.
They start goofing.
They just start playing like whatever.
Well, to be
So-
fair, a lot of games encourage or mandate character locked rankings. So it's like if I'm playing Manon in Street Fighter, my rank is for Manon only.
Oh, okay.
I can't raise up my Manon and then switch over to Ryu
Yeah.
and then expect the game to treat it like they're the same.
I'm just thinking about Hearthstone when I was like working my ass off to try to get into Legend, and then
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'm playing against a Legend guy, and he flips like some crazy shit, and you're like,
He's a low level legend.
bruh, like why are you playing this shit? And you're like,
Our closest analog to ladder is honestly Project Drassel, and for a variety of reasons, that is not a good experience.
it's
in terms of
mostly
training.
testing. Right?
It's mostly testing cards that are not legal in the format, so it's not useful for nationals. The variety of decks that you see is very limited, and like with Guilty Gear, you match up. You match
Looking
up
for game not against the Nubis Mon.
So if you flip Viximon, a lot of your opponents will say, I actually don't want to play against security control tonight, and they'll just leave the match.
Meanwhile, they were playing fucking Tsukuyamon, Kazuhamon shit, and they're like, you fucking idiot, you gave me a free win. I wasn't gonna win this game.
I think there was a COVID meta in Melee where Falcos were not getting matched up against because people were like, I don't want to play against a net play Falco.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Well, a lot of people write, like, I don't know if you do this, but do you write off ladder heroes?
Like Wi-Fi warriors.
Basically Wi-Fi warriors?
Yeah. For the most part. I mean, I think that there's core skills that you gain from being on ladder, but I definitely respect somebody's skill level less if they've presented it only in like an online format.
Yeah.
Because it is a fundamentally like different experience.
Well, I was thinking about it, right? It's like ladder, it does reward, skill.
We should specify when we're saying ladder, we're referring to a lot of things, but the primary thing is we're saying just online ranked experiences.
Yeah, where you kind of like climb ranks, and once you're at the top rank, then you're on top of the world, baby.
You're master rank.
You're in heaven.
You're in heaven.
It just feels like a lot of the time, like you said earlier, you can get 60% win rate and climb up really high.
60 is a high win rate.
Yeah, like
60 is a high.
but I mean, even then, you don't even need 60% to reach like some of the top ranks.
No.
Whereas I feel like in a tournament, it's like you have a 60% win rate, you're not topping very high. Like you need a way better than
No.
60%.
I mean, in
it-
chess, right?
Mhm.
Do you like the ELO system? If you like, because like there's a
Elo's a lot better because
there's a third party Guilty Gear ELO system rating update. Pokemon Showdown uses ELO.
Yeah, and then Street Fighter didn't have Elo at launch, but then they added an Elo system for Legend rank.
I do like Elo better. Yeah.
No, Elo, for those listening, Elo is a ranking system that is purely based off of your performance, and it does not just reward total number of games played.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you've played 10,000 hours but you're bad, you're not going to be ranked higher than somebody who's played 100 hours but is good.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that Elo is difficult in card games because, like, is it the same deck if I add or remove one card?
Right.
And if the answer is, like, yes, I have the same ranking, well, then now I have to say, am I throwing my ranking by playtesting? And, you know, how precious do I need to treat my rank?
I do remember I can't think of the game for the life of me, but there was stuff on Steam where people were like, this game, like I was looking at getting into it, and they're like, this game sucks because there's no casual mode. That you can't like play around in testing and like try out different decks and experiences without like, you have to play ranked and like sacrifice wherever your spot is on ladder in order for you to like test out a card or a different deck idea.
Well, yeah, a lot of high ladder players will just make Smurfs, right? Like I know that's a big thing going on in Dota right now. Is a lot of top players have Smurfs, and Valve has basically said nobody's allowed to have a Smurf. Your Smurf is getting banned. And some of the players that have come out, and especially the old heads, where they're like back in the day in like Warcraft 3, it was required to have a Smurf as a pro player because you had to hide your strats, your build orders, and you had to play on your Smurf so that when you went into a competition, you couldn't be prepped for.
A Smurf is just like a low-level account that is piloted by a high-level player.
I actually really want to comment on this because I'm very strict on Smurfs. When I was hosting tournaments, if you Smurfed at date of registration and didn't DM, if you DM'd me and said, by the way, this is me, just so you know, I'm going through, I'm changing my gamer tag, or I entered as this, but just so you know.
Yeah.
So they tell me it's fine, but if they Smurf actually at date of registration, I would ban them from tournaments.
Well, I'm not talking about Smurfing in a tournament. I'm talking about Smurfing on ladder with prep, because that's what you're saying. If you're testing a new deck.
I think it's a similar issue because it gets into the whole skill-based matchmaking issue where people would create a new account so that they had a lower rank. Like streamers would do this so they could like clown on bad players and get stream content. And it's like ultimately what you've done is you're intentionally having a second account at a lower skill level in order to damage the play experience for other people that the system is meant to be supporting, because like you ruin the skill-based matchmaking experience.
Yeah,
I think that having one Smurf account for the purposes of like WoW players who want to test strategies on an alt account that's ranked up and leveled up, it's like that's fine. I don't have any issue with that. But
getting there.
It's a process of getting there, and it's like if they get Smurf ranked up, and then they say let's now go back and make another Smurf.
Yeah,
that's like
that's the thing. Yeah.
You're fucking with the whole system.
If you have 4 Smurfs, it's like what do you like? You're one player that is skewing like your high level of play through like 4 accounts that are going to be at varied levels of placement, and just like disrupting different players' like ladder climbing experience of like they're trying to get better, they're trying to climb out of the rank that they might be stuck in, or just try to get better at the game, and you're saying like, no, I'm going to stop you at this stage, and then once I excel past that, I'm going to come back and stop you again.
Well, it's funny to hear you guys say that, because a lot of the pro players actually have the same opinion as you guys on ranked in general, where it's not the real game, it's not the real show of competitiveness. So they say, I'm preparing for a real big boy tournament, so I'm going to Smurf in ladder, because that's going to help me prepare for the real game.
Yeah.
And if I ruin someone's fake experience, I don't care.
But if that's the other person's whole experience, then that's where it's an issue. Like, I also think that the idea, we talked about it briefly, but like the idea of save that shit for nationals is like it's a dead idea. It doesn't exist at this point. Like realistically, save that shit for nationals is old head mentality that doesn't matter. Almost no strategies are actually kept secret until like the date of the big competition.
You gotta get those likes on Twitter.
You gotta get the likes on Twitter, and more importantly, your opponent
X.
sees your strategy, and then they report it. They post it online. We'll look what this guy did.
Yeah.
The only way you actually have saved that shit for nationals is if you only do it in an offline environment with another player who's like also training in secret.
Yeah, it's weird because like I would think of a ladder climbing experience as like, you know, this is me trying to get good at the game, and then it's like once I reach that top level, you know, if I reach Diamond in Hearthstone or something, or I reach like Legend in Hearthstone, then I'm happy, I'm good,
Yeah.
I've made it. But for other people, they're like, fuck you, bro, like I don't care. This is just a ranking for me because I'm gonna go play in a tournament. That's where it actually matters.
Yeah.
So it's like it's taking what someone like takes, you know, as
Some people treat it as like the full experience. Some people
Yeah.
treat it as like the jokey side game.
Yeah, and I just like, you know, as someone who's probably a little bit more, I think I've told you guys this maybe off pod, but my mindset towards competitive events is that not to compete at the top performance, but to know that I'm like, I've got the right mindset and that I'm going into the game and getting better at the game as a whole. Not to necessarily get a top placement, but to know that I'm making decisions that fly in a competitive environment where players are playing at a higher skill level.
Yeah, so it's not actually about the placement, but you just want to see the systems at work
Yeah.
and be able to execute them.
But, you know, it's like I want to take my Yellow Hybrids deck to a format where, like, BT9 OTK is the best thing ever. And it's like, yeah, you probably shouldn't do that, but I want to play this deck. I want to play it in an environment where if I make a good decision, it's rewarded. And I'm going to be testing my mettle. I'm not playing against, like, you know, some
randoms online.
Yeah, some random guy who's got, like, you know, an Ogremon deck or something.
Well, what are you saying? No, so I mean, I think that's a fair point. At the end of the day, winning the event is not necessarily the reward that you always have to be on the lookout for. It's not like everybody, you know, one person at the end of an event goes home happy and everybody else goes home sad. A lot of them can say, I managed to prove my ability to like perform with this deck at a level that I wanted, or like, you know, I did play as well as I could possibly play, but, you know, the cards weren't enough in my favor, or the matchups weren't enough in my favor. Like, yeah, you can take satisfaction and reward not from simply winning, even if it is a tournament environment. So we've missed our numbers. So I gotta go back and recap.
We're at three now.
No. So we're on number 3, but I've got 3 in the bank.
Okay.
Because number 3 is Wi-Fi Warriors ain't worth shit. So if you're playing against somebody who's only played in an online tournament, Noah, disconnect the internet. They can't survive when exposed to open air. So don't worry. They're working at a quarter capacity in the live event.
5G in their head will just like short circuit and break down.
So that's lesson 3 for Noah. Lesson 4 for Noah is watch out for Smurfs. Because there might be Kiki might have been playing under a different gamer tag, and
you might have noticed a different mat setup. So he was probably playing with like a regular raising area.
Yeah, you look out for an iconic titty mat, and that's how you'll know who you're looking for. And the 5th point, Noah, winning is not the only reward that you really need to be hunting for.
You could get 50 cents by giving away your place.
You could get 50 cents by selling your spot, but as much as we hope Noah does extraordinarily, if he comes, you know, 5th, I can't imagine him coming lower than 5th, right? Like, so if he comes 5th, the hellscape, it's still okay. We're still proud of you.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you. Did I tell you I had a ladder experience in Pokemon where I actually encountered someone who was win trading?
Win trade. I don't know the phrase.
So win trading is when someone will play against someone who has the intention to lose to boost their main account's elo. So I went against someone's Smurf, and their Smurf was intended to grind up to an elo where they could match against their main account, and they would double queue so that their Smurf matched against their main, and then they would intentionally lose on their Smurf. And I would encounter this person. So this is in Pokemon Showdown. This is on ladder. So this is like 2200 elo. I would encounter someone who I knew was the Smurf of a main player. Yeah. Because he spoke the same, he played the same, and I saw his match history. He was playing against his main account. He would mysteriously queue against his main account and troll every single game. And I'll put this person on blast. If you're out here, friggin' cringe.
Like,
I swear on this Christian podcast.
I don't understand. Like, what's the point of doing that?
So it's a method of artificially inflating your elo without having to get better at the game.
On your main?
Yes.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
So you have a Smurf to boost your main account.
Yes.
Just go win a couple games.
But it's crazy because once you get to like that elo, I was gonna say this actually last episode, I think, about queue times, where when you get to high elo and you queue for a little while, if you've been in queue past a certain point, you're like, I know I'm getting like a 1700 player, or like a person who's like 500 elo.
Yeah, like every 30 seconds, it's increasing the range.
Increase the range. So usually, like if it's queued longer than like 2 minutes, I'll like stop the queue and try again. If you go against a low level player and they cheese you or they have a good matchup, you lose a lot of elo.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I know. Yeah.
So when your main account is like this guy, he had like 2300 elo or something. He was like up there. He was like top 10. He would like basically play up on his Smurf up to like a reasonable elo, like 2200, and then they would queue at the same time. And because 23 and 2200 are actually relatively close together, because there's only like 10 people between 22 and 23, they would actually match each other really quickly.
So fucking
it was
cringe.
So cringe. But it's like, it's really hard. It's like exponentially harder to get elo as you go up, right?
Yeah,
like it's like if you're at 23, every game you win against a 17 will give you 5 or 6 elo.
Yeah. This leads us into our 6th lesson of Noah.
Don't boost.
Noah, stop playing ghost hands against yourself. It's fucking cringe, bro.
I like ghost handing.
I do too.
I just like touching cards.
It's so funny because Noah got called out recently for ghost handing as like,
what the fuck?
Yeah, well, I'll say it because I don't mind calling him out. Mark
again,
Mark was like saying that like, that's pretty fucking weird that you ghost hand. I was like, isn't this normal practice? Like, I assume that most competitive players ghost hand. And to clarify, ghost hand is when you play 2 decks against each other, almost from an omniscient view, to get a sense of how the game would have played out if it had been played optimally.
Goldfishing for the Magic players.
Is that what it's called?
Goldfish.
Is that why it's MTG Goldfish?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
All I know is that it's called Goldfish.
MT Goldfish.
No.
MTG Goldfish.
It's a YouTuber.
Magic the Goldfish.
Magic the Goldfish.
I hate the way he talks.
Hello, Magic the Gathering players! Welcome to our new Blaze Box reveals!
By the way, okay, while we're in our cut period,
I just think it's so interesting.
I hate him.
Ghost.
Please stop this. I hate it so much. I agree with you. By the way, do you have Scooby-Doo voices because you read to your brother? Because I was like, you're really, like, you are all lost.
Like Scoob? When do I do the Scooby-Doo voice?
We did, we talked about the, I'm the Joker. Yeah. When you did that,
like, Scoob might have to get run here. Oh, I can't believe they left these pepperonis out on the counter, Scoob.
I hate how loud we're being now, and I kept being like, guys, bring it up, and you're like, alright, yeah, so I think that.
I just wanted to ask, how do you guys feel about ladder tournaments?
Ladder tournaments?
Yeah,
like,
so you enter or you reg with a certain amount of people, and you guys all start on fresh accounts, and then you play a ranked matchmaking system, and then whoever comes out with the highest elo wins. So it's not about like your win-loss necessarily.
Against each other, but like,
it's not a bracket elimination. It's just you play a certain amount of games, and then after a certain amount of games, whoever has the highest elo.
A certain amount of games I'm okay with. I thought you were saying it was based on time, and I was like, then aggro players kind of get a boost. I guess I'm fine with that. Again, you're competing in a different environment than a tournament environment.
Yeah.
So it's measuring different skills. But I'm fine seeing that as a competitive experience, like a very different sort of a competitive experience.
And there's like a cool, sorry, I don't want to, I just was
saying. Yeah, Jeremiah, he's talking.
I was going to say, I like the cool dynamic of like the person who's performing well in the tournament will have the higher elo, so they have more to lose on their games.
Yeah, that's true too. It is a really interesting dynamic. I've not played anything like that at all, but I think that it sounds really cool, and I would be down to try it. I'm trying to think of like the ways that it could be exploited though, and like how you could cheese your way to like getting a really high elo really quickly, or just like in a more efficient manner. I mean, I'm trying to think about it in like Yu-Gi-Oh, where you just play like FTK shit. It's just like fucking annoying to deal with. Not necessarily the best deck in the format, but something
but we're saying,
how can I get quick wins as fast as possible?
Yeah, but we're saying like, you play a set number of games. So like an FTK deck that is not consistent wouldn't really get boosted anyway.
So you'd need to have like high skill testing matchups.
Yeah. Usually what it is like it's a cap of games. You can play up to this many games. And so some people will play a couple games, they'll realize they don't have a good win rate, and they'll just stop playing.
They'll bail out, yeah.
So those players who are like low on the ladder are no longer in the pool of ranked players.
Isn't that, I think that's like the gauntlet in Legends of Runeterra. It's kind of the same thing. You play like 9 games. If you lose 2, you're out.
But and those will match you up against like Arena.
It's kind of like Arena and Hearthstone, but like you literally go in with like a constructed deck.
Yeah.
And you play like a meta. And I think it's how they judge who gets invited to their like invitational or whatever.
Oh.
Something like that. Ben would know.
Do you know
more
this
about
system?
No, I didn't know about this.
No, this is something that I tried to play in when I was getting back into Legends of Runeterra a little bit ago. I was like, yo, I could be professional.
Yeah.
If
I could be one of the greats.
And for what it's worth, I think it is a cool system.
You have to get a set number of wins. You have a cap on your wins, and you have a cap on your losses.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you reach either, you're done.
Yeah.
If you hit
You're
max
done,
wins, you're good. You hit 3 losses or whatever, you're out.
Yeah. Which is almost kind of similar to when we talked about getting into heaven in Guilty Gear.
Yeah.
That's probably better than like, getting invited to a competitive event based on ladder alone.
Right.
I mean,
that is a measure of who's grinding more. Basically.
It's super. It's 100%. It's just like it's time put in. So I don't think that's going to lead us to another lesson. I think
lesson number 7: put in less time.
You know what? Have some fun.
Have some fun.
There we go. We've got our 7 great demon lords for for Noah.
7 deadly sins of competitive gaming.
No, that Kodak already has a lot.
No.
I'm sorry, it's a taken brand, but these are our 7 great demon lords of the Digimon trading card game. Good luck to Noah if we post this early, or well, we hope you came 5th if it comes out late.
You did your best, buddy.
You did your best, buddy. We still love you. All right. For right now, I think that's going to be all from us at the Errata Sonata podcast. Next week, we'll probably have Noah back. And for right now, thanks for coming on, Julian, for these duo of episodes.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Night, Mons.
All right. Night, Mons.